Corporate governance, in essence, provides the framework through which companies' objectives are set and the means of attaining those objectives, as well as monitoring performance, are determined. Today, the realm of corporate governance is undergoing a profound transformation, reshaping the way companies operate and interact with the world. The program today will be will explore the critical points that underscore the importance of an enhanced regulatory framework within the context of corporate governance reforms vis-a-vis how the Nigeria's tax reform bills will ease cost of living and boost workers' disposable income. And to do justice to this is the pioneer and former executive secretary of the West African Tax Administration Forum, WATAF, but now head of the Reputation Management Division of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Nigeria, Babatunde Oladapo. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you for having me today.
To begin, you're with WATAF and as well as the FIRS now. What can you tell us about how the public sector is actually incorporating corporate governance in its own activities to achieve objectives?
Okay, thank you very much. When we look at corporate governance itself, in simple terms, means government, public institutions abide with the issues of reporting, which alludes to issues of transparencies about the activities, about what they do in a financial year, and then in terms of the corporate structure, having boards of parastatals, government agencies, and the like, which are part of what is expected for not only businesses but government agencies. We see recently government agencies coming to terms. I was glad to hear in your report preceding this interview that the NNPC published an annual report, financial report, which is what is expected of such organizations, so that the public will have access to what has been done in the outgone financial year. So the landscape is looking better, and I hope other government agencies, ministries, or departments will take a cue, because it has an indirect influence in increasing public trust. When government agencies or affiliates of government publishes what they do, are more transparent, it promotes public trust, and then as a tax administration, it also increases the trust in payment of taxes, which is where we are having a huge deficit, which we hope that the current effort by this, the government of the day has put in place will help us to overcome, so that we can finance our development sustainably from domestic revenue resources.
Now, the need to institute corporate governance in the business of government is to boost revenue, ensure transparency and accountability, as you mentioned. But what about boosting revenue? How true is this?
Yeah, so what it does when government agencies or ministries disclose their transactions, expenditures of government, the citizens, the tax-paying part of society will see what the taxes paid are being used for. So invariably it has an influence on how to respond to government call for them to fulfill their civic responsibility of paying tax. So the more we have the likes of the NNPC and even government as a whole being responsive to the call by citizens to know what government is doing and how it impacts their daily lives, and how government policy is going to impact them going forward. It elicits a kind of positive feeling that makes them to want to pay their taxes. And I want to quickly say that between 2023 and now, I'm able to say that the level of discourse within the fiscal and tax space hasn't been this robust. We've had various consultations between government, private sector, even going beneath to students and all categories of citizens in Nigeria, being engaged in the issues surrounding taxation, and people are beginning to say, okay, so taxation is not all we think it is. We now understand that it has a human feeling, it has a direct impact on our livelihood, and it has a direct impact on our businesses. So transparency and disclosure of government spending and activities will definitely up the game in terms of promoting tax compliance, which will help us bring in the money needed to fund developmental projects.
As investors look to come into the country to invest, what are the key things they look out for in terms of when we talk about corporate governance structure?
Yeah, what investors will look beyond looking at the profit issues. Yes, I'm going to make money. For instance, coming to Nigeria, I have a mining concession. But investors will want to look at stability in terms of government policy. How does it affect them? But because if government policy is not stable, it means having invested their resources, that could bring a negative repercussion on their ability to recoup their investment. Also, investors will want to see what are the kind of taxes available? How does it impact my business? Because you are not a philanthropist. You are here to make profit. So you want to find out what kind of taxes are on grant. How do I pay them? Who are the ones receiving it? When do I pay them? They want to be certain so that when they are going to the drawing board, they can come up with costs and say, okay, this is the the cost for operations, and this is where. So they want to see that. And then also, coming closely behind is also investors will want to see what are the facilities on ground. Then the issues of energy, because if you don't have access to energy that is cheap and sustainable, it will increase the cost of production. They also want to find out what are the infrastructures such as roads. When we produce our goods, how do we get them to the consumer? So there are many other things, but I think those are 3 or 4 major things. And then finally, I think also investors will want to be sure, when I make money in Nigeria, for instance, how do I repatriate my profit back to my stakeholders, whether here in Nigeria or abroad? So they want to be sure that there are rules that are not opaque, there are rules that are friendly, so that when they invest in the economy, they will know they have something to show for their effort.
Now, based on your assessment, based on your assessment, would you say that most of our organizations here in Nigeria have a very solid corporate governance to actually attract investors into the country?
Yeah, well, to a large extent, we have. Nigeria, we have rules. It will amaze you if you go and dig up documents. There are guidelines, there are regulations, there are even law. So I wouldn't say in Nigeria we don't have those guidelines, those regulations, those tasks. We may need to update them because society is evolving. And when I look at the landscape, it's actually the issue of enforcing those rules. That's where we need to do more so that people can be made to follow process and guideline put in place. So a general assessment will say, yes, we are not yet there, but we are on the trajectory. And especially with what we are seeing on the fiscal landscape in recent time, because taxation and fiscal related has a way of making companies to abide with corporate governance. Let me explain further.
Okay.
For instance, in taxation, it is expected that every corporate entity should file their returns, their annual returns. And you alluded to that while you were going through the report on the NMPC, that the Financial Reporting Council. So for a taxman, you must file your audited report. If you don't, then you get penalized, which are liable to also increase the interest on it, are likely to be compounded as we go for. So what we are seeing around the fiscal landscape and the way government is going about it, which I think is a very good thing and in a serious manner, it will help corporate governance around companies operating in Nigeria. Even government agencies will have to file their returns and then be seen as being corporately responsible. And there's also another aspect of taxation that is on board that is gaining currency globally, and Nigeria has adapted to it, is the country-by-country reporting, which makes multinationals to file their report in any country they are operating. And we are seeing the FRS and the Ministry of Finance coming up with regulations that make sure when you do business in Nigeria, you should file your returns so that we'll know what are the taxes due to us in this jurisdiction, I mean Nigeria.
Okay, well, the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax, and that's the chairman of Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, that is Taiwo Oyedele, recently said that tax reform bill will somehow raise net income and ease burden on Nigerian workers. Let's have your opinion there.
Yeah, in my opinion, he wasn't boasting, but that's exactly what it will come to. Because when you look at the 4 bills before the National Assembly, he has components that will help to make workers smile. Because now the focus is more on progressive taxation, which means the more you earn, the more you pay. The less you earn, the less you pay, which is what most workers will want. So now you are having those 4 bills, when they are passed into law, will help to keep money in the hands of workers. For instance, the issue of VAT, and let me allay the fears of Nigeria, VAT is still 7.5, and the government is not saying they are increasing it now, so we still have a leeway. And there are exemptions. There are some goods that they are not vatable, and they relate to what an average worker will consume. You have VAT exemption on agricultural goods. You have on edibles that are common consumables that workers see. So we have that kind of relief that makes it, keeping money in the hands of workers. And then, of course, the issue of pay as you earn, it's now clear that even those who earn 1.7 and above in a year have some kind of relief. They are not going to be taxed like before. They have reliefs. Then those who earn lower, some of them won't even have to file. They don't have to pay taxes if your income falls below 1 million per annum. You don't have business with paying taxes. So those are things that can help to keep money in the hands of workers and make life better for the Nigerian workers. So Taiwo was not joking when he mentioned that. Okay. And I think Nigerians should be expected and hopeful that things will be better.
Of course. Thank you very much, Mr. Babatunde Oladapo. It's a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you for having me one more time.